Hi everyone, so I've just gone live talking about this topic, and so if you want to watch the live stream you can go to my Facebook page, Marianne Hanson Counselling Service, where I'm talking about sharing a house with someone you no longer love. So if you're tuning in for the first time, my name's Marianne. I'm the counsellor at Marianne Hanson Counselling Service. I specialise in working with couples and individuals, and the areas I specialise in are relationships, self-esteem, stress, anxiety and depression. So many years ago, I think probably about 4 years ago, there is a video, if I remember I will link it in the description, where I made a video called Same House, Separate Lives, and I was talking about this idea where people are in a relationship and then they've either separated, so it could be a divorce or it could just be a relationship separation, but they're having to live together. So they're having to continue to live together even though they're no longer a couple, and just what some of the challenges are when it comes to that. So some of the reasons people find themselves in this situation is partly because they can't afford to move out. So maybe it's just not, it's too expensive and it's just not something they can afford to do. Maybe they're still on the lease, so they feel that they're going to lose their deposit, or it's going to be costly for them to move too early. Sometimes it can be because for practical reasons, so maybe it's just I don't know, it could be that you just want to be in the same house with the children. If you have children together, it could be other practical reasons. And also for some people, they're unsure whether they want the relationship to end. So they might be using this as a trial period where they say, right, let's separate, but let's live together and let's just see how we get on for the next few months, and then we can look at whether we're going to reunify or not. So whatever the reason is, it can cause a lot of challenges, and that's because it's the awkwardness to start with, I suppose. Like when a relationship ends, most times you go your separate ways. You probably don't see that person again. Maybe if you've got mutual friends, you'll bump into them occasionally. But the idea of no longer being in a relationship with someone, but then still having to live with them, can be really difficult. It can be tough emotionally, and it can just be difficult practically. Some of the challenges can include when you start to date again, so one of you or both of you might start having new partners. This can raise a lot of jealousy and insecurity for the other partner. This can cause awkwardness if you bring the date back to your home. This can just be difficult because the one person might not have moved on properly, so when they see that you've moved on, it can cause a lot of negative feelings. I've seen quite a lot of cases where I've watched programs either on YouTube or on TV where this has led to, acts of aggression, violence, or even people being murdered because they've brought someone home or they've moved on, and then their partner realizes that they don't want to see this, that it causes too much rage, and then it's led to them lashing out. So these are some of the things I'm going to be talking about when I give you the tips. The other thing that can be challenging is just the whole awkward atmosphere of being in a house. You now have to redefine the relationship because you're no longer a couple, you are now housemates. But it's just seeing that person around and being around them and having no longer, you're not fancying them anymore or reaching out for a kiss or showing affection. You're just avoiding each other, or it's just can be so tense that because you're only there because you can't afford to live anywhere else, that you don't even want to be in each other's company. So I think that's where you have to really be a certain type of person to be able to live like this. I couldn't do it, and that's nothing to do with, I've not had any relationships that have ended badly. I don't have any contact with my exes apart from a few people that I'll send happy Christmas messages to and that sort of thing. I just think it takes a big emotional shift to readjust from being a couple living together where you've shared things, you've shared each other's beds, you've shared the sofa, you've cuddled, there's loads of things that you've done together in that house, and then for it to turn into, now we're just going to go to being like lodgers or housemates. It takes a real big emotional mindset shift. People can do it, but I think it can be difficult. The other thing is boundaries. Boundaries is a big challenge. So if you have had joint accounts, or if you've had certain, tasks or chores that you've done in the house, so maybe your job is to do this, and you've the childcare issues or whatever it is, once you're no longer a couple, you might not want that to happen anymore. So maybe you want to take over some of the other responsibilities. Maybe you don't want your partner to be dropping the children to school or to do this or do that. I think because you still have to be co-parents, that's if you've got children together. But I think when you're living together but you're not a couple, that can also be really awkward, because especially if you have separate rooms or you have to explain to the children that mummy and daddy are not going to be able to go to events together anymore, we'll go separately. There's loads of things involved when there's children as well. So I think before you take this step and you make this decision, you really have to consider some of these things, and you have to say to yourself, is it really worth it? Financially, I can't afford it, but you know what? Is it worth just taking the loss and moving out because this is going to be too much? For some people it works, but I'd say for the majority of people, I'd say that it probably wouldn't work for them. So these are some of the tips. Tip number 1 is to set boundaries. Now, it can be so easy to fall back into traps. One of the things I didn't mention is this idea of, because you've had a sexual relationship with your partner, when you then separate and you're living in the same house, you might just get into routines of just having, becoming like a friends with benefits type situation, because the person is convenient because they're living there, so you don't have to go anywhere. But also you've already been intimate before, and it can just be so easy to say, okay, we're sitting on the sofa watching TV, and the opportunity is there, so we might as well take it, but then have regrets later because one person might see that as a sign that you're getting back together. You might also feel guilty by saying this is not what we wanted. So setting boundaries is really important. Sit down as a couple, even though you're not together anymore, and work out the boundaries. What are we going to do about finances? What are we going to do about sleeping arrangements? What are we going to do about household tasks? What about our mutual friends? How are we going to sort of tackle that? Are we going to go to the same events that we've got planned? There's loads of things to work out. So sit down as a couple and do that, adult to adult. The second thing is to consider how you're going to feel if one of you starts dating. Have that discussion up front. You might put a boundary in by saying, if you do start to date someone, I don't feel comfortable about you bringing them back to the house. Or you may say, I might feel hurt if I hear you talking to your new boyfriend or girlfriend, but you know what? I'm going to have to deal with that. I think it's just about a respect thing. It doesn't mean you can't move on if you're no longer together. And people look at it differently. Some people say, well, we're not together anymore. We're not a couple just because we're living together, so I can do what I want. I can date who I want. I can bring them back. But I just think, even though in practice that sounds that sounds normal, in reality, most people don't sort of split up from a relationship and then all of a sudden switch off their feelings. It can take a long time, and most of us don't really want to see our exes with someone else. We try to avoid that if possible. So when you're living together, you just have to consider that a bit more. Also, redefine the relationship. What's going to happen from here? Are we going to just co-parent? Are we going to do this as a trial thing and then get back together? Are we saying that we are completely done, that's the end of it, and once we sort out this home situation, we're not even going to be friends? What's going to happen? It's about adjusting to the new norm for the both of you, and also looking at what you want the relationship to be about. Also, give yourself time to adjust. Lots of people say when they end a relationship, and I've made loads of videos about relationship breakups, they tend to end the relationship, and then it feels the emotion that they tend to have is either panic, or they feel so sad that they say, right, let's just stay friends, let's keep things as normal as possible and stuff, and they don't then have time to adjust to a new type of relationship. It goes straight from, right, you were my boyfriend or my girlfriend, now we're friends, we're talking all the time still, we're doing the things we used to do, we're spending time together. And I don't think actually that's healthy, because what that means is that you haven't really adjusted or changed anything. And it might sound good in the beginning, but later down the line something happens, and usually it's when a new partner comes on the scene, because then that person might say, well, you're too friendly with your ex, and then you have to put things in place, and then it's it causes an issue. So give yourself time to adjust. This is no longer a relationship like it used to be, so there's going to be things that change. And the final thing is, try to have a deadline date for when you're going to move out. Although it might be financial and you have to stay together for some time, having a date in your head means that you can adapt easier to the situation. If you know that I've only got to do this for 3 more months, then I'm moving into my new place. It also means you can start to think ahead. You can start to say, well, I'm going to buy some things practically for where I live, and I'm going to do this when I move out, rather than sitting there and thinking, oh, how long do I have to be here for? And this is really draining to have to be around my ex. This atmosphere is really bad, and that it's just a mindset thing. So I hope you found this video useful. If you have, feel free to share it with others. Don't forget to like and leave your comments, because I'd love to hear what you think. And if you enjoyed this video, then consider subscribing to my channel, where you'll find similar videos. Thanks for watching, everyone, and have a good day. Bye.